Mhm. Good evening, everyone. We are continuing the series of master classes in the framework of the special program for Eastern European Network for Citizenship Education members. And today we have special guests with us from Armenia and Georgia who are great idea holders from our partner organization, Civil Match. We had a competition where Liubov and Ara were participating, and they presented a nice idea for a project, and thus they are today our guests to also contribute to the development of knowledge and skills of our network members. So both of them are experts in the field actually, and they have been doing some online trainings on disaster risk management, Mr. Ara Nazinyan, and a series of online trainings and consultation as well as Liubov Kuznetsova. She has been doing some moderation and co-facilitation of quite nice projects. And of course, we are happy to have you here today. Feel free to add anything that I didn't add from you. Introduce yourself as well, and let's go. Thank you.
Thank you for a very nice introduction. Welcome, Helga, Olga. It's written Helga. Is it the right pronunciation?
In English, yes. In Russian, Olga.
Olga, okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, also I would like to take a chance and thank you for, well, this wonderful introduction and welcoming us here today. Well, we really feel privileged that we can share our ideas and the project proposal we will start it during the Civil Match Forum. So it could be really nice to get to know the participant we have today. So Helga, if you can just say a few words about yourself, about your background, so it will help really us to adapt probably some of our speeches to your interests and needs.
Ольга пишет, я думаю, ей просто неудобно сейчас или в паспорте.
Okay, okay. Yeah, so now I see that, yes. Okay, so she's from Belarus.
Yeah. Olga is the member of Coordination Council in EENCE, a colleague of mine, actually, a member of the EENCE since a couple of years already. And myself, I am Tatev from Armenia. I'm also the member of Coordination Council and the co-founder of the network. So we are happy to have you as well. We are having one more participant now joining us from Georgia. So Olga says she's ill and she can't speak, actually. So we are welcoming Kristine Kandelaki. I will quickly introduce her as well. She's also from the Coordination Council from Georgia, from the CSRDG organization, which is also a founding member of the network. And Kristine, we have today Ara and Liubov with us as the speakers for the session. So maybe we can start.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Good evening.
Hello, Kristine.
Hello.
Shall I start the presentation? I think so.
We see it.
Right. So our today's topic is cultural heritage and strengthening community resilience. As you know from the introduction that, well, we have some specific expertise in community resilience and risk prevention, as well as cultural heritage preservation and education. So we are, in our presentation, we will try to combine these two issues and present some international statements of like the Council of Europe or different international bodies, which also claim it as a very urgently needed topic nowadays. So Ara will start with presenting some notion to you.
Okay. Good evening one more time, and thank you for joining us today. I want to add to the introductory note of Liubov that we indeed try to explore the idea of, at the first hand, two different topics: cultural heritage and community resilience. But when we start to talk to each other and exploring what that could mean in the context of, for example, COVID-19 pandemic or natural disasters that we are facing every day, then we realize that this topic is going to be probably one of the urgent issues for years ahead. That's why we try to also think about the role of civil society that could play in mainstreaming this topic in our discourse about the role of civil society in society, with the focus on community development. But let's start. First slide, please, Liubov. So first notion of that we try to use the system approach for community resilience. Before moving ahead, we need to first of all identify jointly what does community mean to us. What is this? So please, my first question to you. If you can write or say a couple of words, what is community from your point of view? That would help us a lot. Olga, you can write. We know that you cannot speak, but Christina, if you can just say your view on the definition of community, that would be really helpful.
So I think that so in my definition, community is like unites. There can be several definitions, but community unites people who live, for example, in a specific territorial area, for example, in one village or in a community can be like unification of several villages, and the community also can be people who have common interests, common values, common ideas. So it can be based like on geography or on common interests or both. So my idea.
Okay, thank you very much. Olga, you want to add something?
I think she may write later. Let me just speak, before she types anything. Actually, per my opinion, while I was observing, let's say, my community involvement, per me, it's just my subjective opinion, actually. I think that this is a social group, let's call it, right, of people who share the same values and interests in sake of implementing a goal, a really optimistic and beneficial goal for a specific part of their, either where they live or where they just educate or teach or learn themselves. This is just my perception of the community.
Thank you very much. I think you both are right. And you mentioned, first of all, the important notion of community, that there is something that a group of people share. And the first issue is the geography, the location where they live, yes? And then the conditions in which they live, whether it's weather or resources or situation. And from the international glossary on disaster risk management, you see this organization which is called UNDRR, is the UN Organization for Disaster Risk Reduction. There is a very specific definition of disaster. We can use different definitions for disaster, but in general, this is about disruption of functioning of a community or society as a larger community due to events which affect the normal situation and bring losses and negative impact. And I think we all can say a lot about the impact of COVID-19 pandemic. And we can even visualize the impact on our life of all type of lockdowns and human lives lost, economic losses, etc. So in that sense, I think this COVID-19 is a bold example of serious disaster. It's a really global disaster. What is the difference between resilient and non-resilient communities? The resilience as a notion of community, as a function of community, it's again from the vocabulary of UNDRR. It's an ability of community or society to resist this type of shocks and then to recover. Two basic issues that, first of all, when shocks comes, you need to accept it, but not to lose your quality, to resist, to absorb it, and then to accommodate to a new situation, then to try to quickly recover in a way that you can avoid this type of shock in the future. So there are different notions of time, efficiency, and other things. But the important issue is that there is a concept of preservation and restoration of basic structure and functions of the community. I think we all can say that cultural values are among those important structures in the community, and cultural values are the most topics that are shared by the communities. So next slide, please. If there is question about the definition, please, you can ask the questions now, but if no question, I would just, I want to explore a couple of more words about a system. But before that, let me close the window because it's noise coming from window. Excuse me. Okay, tell me what you can see on this picture.
Same color objects.
Okay.
Besides the words, of course, the word system, some signs.
System is there, yeah, and then you can see what? Same color?
Food, I don't know. Yeah, the same color objects. I mean, different type of. Yeah.
And it got even a bit more reddish even in my room.
It matches your room colors indeed.
Yeah. Okay.
We probably we
Christina?
can see a view from the top, from the not bird's view, yeah, but from the top of our height.
Do you see legs?
Yes, of course.
You can see it, right? What you can say about this this picture? How many persons you can see on the picture?
It must be a tricky question, right? So probably one.
It's a very simple question. There is one person. Only one. Okay, and imagine what would happen if one leg moves one step. What would be the will the position of the second leg remain the same?
Depends, I think. It should.
It's a big step.
It definitely have to move and to take your weight, yeah, to the other.
The position of the second leg will be different from the current one, right?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so it's a typical example of a system. There are two elements, at least two elements. They are interconnected. And change of position of one element changes position of the second one. And they are interdependent because the one leg cannot move ahead endlessly. There is a limit that this step can be made, right? So the length of step is limited. But most importantly, we can also see that on this picture, we do not see the whole body, but we can make assumption that there is a body, and there is a place from where these legs can receive command. I mean, the head, the brain.
Yeah.
So in the system, we often do not see the whole elements of the system, but we can see the parts. So let's talk about the definitions. Next, please. Okay. Two or more parts interacting in a function with some boundaries. This notion of boundary is very important because sometimes if we move endlessly without boundaries, then system is being lost. Next. Well, it's again, there are some elements that we cannot see, but they impact the behavior of the system. And in the system, the relationships between parts are much more important than description of the parts itself. So again, depending on the behavior of one element in the system, the entire system can behave differently. And quite often we do not see the parts of the system that dictate the change process. In this picture, we cannot see the head, which is the author of any further step for these legs. Okay, next, please. In order to manage the description of the system and to use for our further purposes, there are different tools that we can apply. In this case, I just want to talk about one widely introduced approach, which is called system mapping. You may have seen this approach in different ways, but the system mapping has a very distinct purpose. It's just to make a snapshot picture of the system. Not often it explains the complexity of system or interrelations between the elements of the system, but it tells about some interconnections and interdependency. Next, please.
Visually, right, Anna? I mean, it more visualized, right? Yeah, thank you.
And then there is another tool which is used through this system mapping is a causal diagram, which shows that there are variables which impact each other. And for example, if we talk about, again, the system approach for the COVID-19, the number of infected people and then number of vaccinated people, they are interdependent. So they can impact each other. More people vaccinated, less people infected, something like this. But it's not always the case, but we assume that there is certain relationship between these numbers, and the stock of vaccinated and non-vaccinated, sick or non-sick people are dependent on the changes in the entire system. Next, please. I tried to bring a small example from the system map description of impact of disaster on sustainable development. And let's assume that we live in a community. And this is a typical sketch of disaster elements, how it works. First of all, let's imagine that this area of community is a whole area which has some elements which are exposed to disaster. For example, schools. Again, I'm bringing this example of COVID-19 because it's well known for everyone. And then we have, this is school area, is an exposed area because we have a gathering of people in this area and the high rate of potentially infected people. And then disaster. Disaster happens when the pandemic starts, and then it starts to hit the vulnerable elements in the system. In this case, we mean only people, because in other cases, for example, if this is the earthquake issue, then we have infrastructure, people, and environmental issue. But for pandemic type of disaster, we have people mostly. And then the impact depends on the exposure or vulnerability rate of those people. By doing vaccination, we decrease the vulnerability rate. And this is the type of the impact that we can have. Again, the rate of vaccination, or vulnerability rate, would be highly dependent on the education and cultural values that people share in the given community. And then we can see that after this disaster, we have again a huge number of affected people, and then response strategies. We all have seen different responses in different countries, like lockdown, and then support to business producers, then social support, and eventually try to recover from all this negative impact, like restoring transportation routes and so on and so forth. But in between these two processes, reaction and recovery, we still enjoy the impact, negative impact of the disaster. And as you may know, that disasters mostly impact the most vulnerable people. Poor people suffer most. And their dependency on vulnerability and poverty, you can see that there are two interacting elements, and they are interdependent. Poverty increases vulnerability, and vulnerability increases poverty. And there is this notion of poverty and vulnerability quite often being used simultaneously, but they are two actually different topics that we need to understand. And of course, from the point of view of sustainable development, which is based on three main pillars of environmental, social, and economic development, all these three elements suffer from different types of disasters. So I just brought this example of a simple analysis of impact of disaster using the system approach and system mapping, just to show how it can work. And next, please. And here's the more, I would say, sophisticated system map for COVID, specific COVID impact of COVID on communities. Again, the same process of vulnerability, community vulnerability, and then impact communities, then immediate response strategies, recovery strategies. Three different elements of economic, social, and community services, rehabilitation, recovery plan on the right side of the picture. And in between, there is a notion of cultural and socio-economic impact on culture. I think this element is being quite often neglected in the response strategies. We have heard about different countries applying different economic stimulus or different social support packages and so on and so forth. But have you ever heard about any specific support provided to cultural heritage, cultural areas? And they suffered a lot. Before we started this discussion, I just informed colleagues that just maybe less than a week ago, we had a situation in Armenia where one of the main cultural assets, cultural value, the temple, old temple, ancient temple area was used as a place for wedding. And because they need some funds, they explained that, well, we need to fundraise because we suffered due to COVID-19 impact, and there were no tourism in the country, and the cultural asset had losses. Now we need to recover from the impact, and there is a person who paid good money to organize the wedding ceremony for kids, well, why not? I think the impact is obvious, but the details of cultural heritage and the topics of cultural heritage and disaster management, I think I will stop here, and Liubov will continue to explain further how they manage to work in these difficult situations. And then we will be answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ara. Thank you really for your great and deep knowledge in the topic that you shared today with us, and for your input in particular with these practical examples, which are absolutely off topic. And I will continue because I'm more actually into, well, practice, cultural heritage preservation, promotion, and education. But I would like to start by quoting one of the most significant statements in international documents about cultural heritage and its role. So you can see it on the screen. I'll just quickly read it. The appropriate conservation of the historic environment, including cultural landscapes, and the safeguarding of relevant traditional knowledge, values, and practices in synergy with other scientific knowledge enhances the resilience of communities to disasters and climate change. So in 2013, for the first time in international documents, cultural heritage was recognized as playing a role in addressing global risks, especially for its ability to strengthen community resilience. It was stipulated in our UNESCO documents, 2013, and it was also stipulated in the Hangzhou Declaration, which placed culture at the heart for sustainable development policies. So later in 2015, during the third United Nations World Conference Disaster Risk Reduction, which was already mentioned several times today by Ara, it was also recognized that cultural heritage provides important insights and opportunities for enhancing disaster risk reduction, post-disaster rehabilitation, and recovery, building back better for stimulating local economic and social development. Yeah, that's what is really important for our talk today. I will just leave these statements for a while I'll just proceed talking about our experience. I'm going to speak today about the role of cultural heritage for the important challenges we as community members face in our modern world, and this ability of people to learn from experience and to increase their abilities to prepare, cope with, and recover from disturbances is the basis of community resilience. So cultural heritage supports the building of a community able to prevent and recover from disturbances like COVID, for instance. And in this evolutionary vision of resilience, in which communities do not return to an initial state, but rather evolve, culture and cultural heritage can be the key to citizen engagement, as well as to social, economic, environmental, and governance innovation. So most regions now have to face various types of risks, including frequent or infrequent events with either sudden or slow onset, natural or man-made hazards that can occur both globally, and by globally, I mean climate crisis, scarcity of resources, migrations, and many others. And they also can occur locally, for instance, earthquakes or depopulation, erosion of cultural capital, and others. Indeed, the current COVID-19 pandemic situation seems to facilitate changes at a global level. I think there is no doubt. And that's when people start talking about community resilience. Several studies actually agree that the main strengths of a community are individuals' ecological components, such as social networks, social inclusion, sense of belonging, leadership, or just their outlook on life, learning and natural and built environment that we are all aware of, The lifestyles, livelihoods, where the role of infrastructure and support services are particularly important in disaster recovery. The example Ara also shared with us today shows how it is really important in this state of post-pandemic times. So for us, it's important to highlight that how people can train resilience through their responses to shocks and stresses, and actively develop resilience through capacity building and social learning. But what is cultural heritage and how it might impact community resilience? So the Framework Convention on the Value of Cultural Heritage for Society, made by the Council of Europe in 2005, marks a revolution in the meaning of cultural heritage, shifting the attention from objects and places to people. So it says that cultural heritage is a group of resources inherited from the past, which people identify independently of ownership as a reflection and expression of their constantly evolving values, beliefs, knowledge, and traditions. It includes all the aspects of the environment resulting from the interaction between people and places through time. It was a kind of theoretical input from our side to show that there are a lot of disputes and studies of cultural heritage and its role in strengthening community resilience. But today, my part is actually to show you some examples of projects we have implemented in our region. And before showcasing the three projects, I would like to stop and show you the map and say a few words about the peculiarities of the region where we're based. And we're, by we, I mean Efendi Villa, Social Impact Hub Efendi Villa, which is based in the town of Kobyleti in the region, in the Autonomous Republic of Adjara in Georgia. We're just not very close to the border with Turkey. We're next to the Lesser Caucasian Mountains, and we're just located at the Black Sea side. So we are in a rural region, and I would like to say a few words about some common characteristics of rural regions of Georgia, and they are as follows. First of all, it's poor access to services of general interest and to job and education opportunities. It's limited market access of local actors, and entrepreneurship still is underdeveloped here. Immigration of skilled people, brain drain is really on the agenda now, and aging population with the need of appropriate infrastructures and services, low accessibility in terms of both transport and communication systems, but also high social cultural capital linked to peculiar tangible and intangible cultural heritage. That's where our organization is really building on community resilience and working in cultural heritage preservation, promotion and education. So our top priorities, community building and community development through art, cultural and educational programs. And before the pandemic, we were particularly active in this field. So the projects I'm going to share come from different years, like this one. For instance, in 2017, we hosted, Efendi Villa hosted the first art residence in the region. It was called Load. And we invited emerging artists from France and Canada to come to Adjara, to Efendi Villa in particular. And they explored the relationship between the practice of contemporary art, the idea of site specificity, and at the same time, Efendi Villa was in the process of transformation. That was, we also called it like extreme art. So it was particularly interested for community development, which was actively involved in all the stages of the art residency. And definitely we had an open exhibition, but it was a completely new experience for local community members because they were completely integrated in the process of the exhibition. The old-fashioned idea of the museum exhibits, when you can just come and see something, never touch, was completely crossed out by our residents, artists in residence, because the local people were really empowered to do something together with the artist. So that's kind of community engagement was a very, very powerful tool, and was really recognized by other local actors as well as the municipality, and it was greatly promoted. Next project today is Ajara Multicultural History, One Story, and it was a community-based project, and it aimed at promoting tangible and intangible cultural heritage with culturally diverse people through storytelling and elaborating family trees. As we believe that stories are the deepest and greatest treasure we have as human beings, storytelling, community conversation, and school workshops have been the means employed. So we traveled a lot around the region of Ajara, went to really remote mountain settlements where we worked with young people, school teachers, and also with historians who have an access to archives to collect a lot of precious stories, which after that we put onto this kind of map where we indicated where the stories come from and who shared with us. So it was a fantastic experience for all actors and for us as a team as well, because we also explored the region from a different angle, and it was a kind of a uniting moment when people really got to know a lot about the history, a very diverse history of the region. I could really proceed and keep talking about that for a lot of time, but I think that it will be another workshop then. One more project which is worth our attention is Living Library. So probably you're aware of the concept of Living Library, when people actually act as a book and present some stories, like disguising yourself as a character of the book. And so this project was part of the Citizens Lab International Network, which was hosted by Efendi Villa, and it was devoted to the European Heritage Days in Georgia, because Efendi Villa is local coordinator of European Heritage Days. So the participants were both international and local community members, and they had this chance to cooperate and exchange their stories. And definitely it was a challenging thing at first, because it was kind of hard to find a common language, but it was really great in any sense. So, and that event initiated a broader vision of cultural heritage, including oral traditions. So in the context of our projects, we always ensure that every citizen can see themselves and their history and their potential in the collective story and in the international landscape as well. So as a result of all these projects and based on the lessons learned during the projects, we could identify some elements that might positively influence our community and community resilience. So for instance, variety of actors and competences. This plurality of actors and competences has proved to be a fertile element for all practices. We always try to exchange international, mainly European practices with our community. And when our community members see how particularly interested those people, completely strangers for them, are in their cultural heritage, which is actually around the corner, they really start appreciating what they possess, I mean local community members, and they start initiating some projects together with Efendi Villa, and this shift from passive to active, proactive position is one of our missions here actually. Then I also would like to highlight high involvement of local actors, of local participants in our events, which also demonstrate a key figure, a key element of community building, and in such cases, community resilience as well. And also internal and external organizers. So external people who had never visited those places before. And in this process, the encountering of these different actors helped unveiling, decoding, and even enhancing of values to be attributed to cultural heritage, and also triggered a virtuous circuit of awareness and care. So as a result of all this I've presented today, we have come to a conclusion that building a shared project between different actors, either people who didn't communicate much before, probably because of some conflicts or some cultural differences or social differences. So this communication is an intrinsic element in achieving community resilience. And cultural heritage plays its role as a uniting element in each of these three projects and many others which have been implemented in Ajara. And several actors put aside their personal interest to contribute to a project of collective interest. By learning to work together, many people began to rebuild relationships which are essential for community resilience. And heritage has thus become a dimension that unites and allows the fertile confrontation among multiple identities. So as I mentioned, we are based in a very culturally diverse region. We have like over 47 subcultures in the region, which is always surprises me a lot, but it's true. And so this experience also allows us to highlight the skills and talents of the community and mediate different points of view among different community members. And yeah, so everything is done for the common interest and for the common good. So most participants of the projects took a proactive and responsible role in these activities, which supported community resilience a lot. And I also have to say that rediscovery of values of local heritage have experimented the creation of opportunities for work, leisure, networking, or even research. And these experiences are carried out by different actors that can be just residents of the neighborhood or guests and tourists, because the region is a very touristy place, especially during summertime, or just new inhabitants. You know, because of the pandemic, a lot of people become like remote workers, so they could really move to some rural regions instead of working in the city. So all these people have designed, can design from time to time new community formations. And so they're all welcomed to come to such places as Efendi Villa, which is a cultural heritage site transformed with and for community into this kind of regeneration hub or living laboratory, as we call it. So we learned that after this event, people really want to participate in other cultural and creative practices or initiatives in Efendi Villa. And our great progress is that some of them have already initiated the projects on their own. But I also have to say that despite the relevance of the cultural heritage issue in strengthening community resilience, there is still a lack of strategies and even operational tools at community resilience in Georgia. That's what we would like to improve by implementing some joint projects like we proposed with ARA, and to see what and how it can impact our communities. And after that, definitely apply to a wider audience in different countries. I hope I managed to cover at least some of the issues of cultural heritage in strengthening community resilience. And now it's time for your questions. So we're more than happy to listen to them, and we will do our best to answer them properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Liubov. Thank you, Ara. Indeed, that was really interesting. And totally different topic that we had covered so far in other master classes. So thank you. We have one question from Christina in chat. She says, what is the role of civic education in preservation of cultural heritage, disaster reduction, and community resilience? If you have had any experience in that, we would be very happy to have your insights into that topic as well. Thank you.
Probably I will jump in with my quick answer. Definitely, civic education is a great element and one of the part of our programs, because it's all about actually human rights, civic rights of people, and it's not only about. It also includes cultural, environmental, economics, social sustainability, which is an integral part of civic education. So definitely we use this knowledge and information in our programs when we are talking about cultural heritage promotion and education.
Thank you. Is there anything
you.
you would like to add, Ara? Mm-hmm.
I want to add to answer this question. The civic education, let's assume what is the purpose of civic education. It's not about bringing new information to people, but it's also about creating additional or new or strengthening existing ties in the communities, and to create social cohesion in the community. This community ties and community cohesion is important element for resilience at the community level. That's why, and the cultural heritage is one of the areas through which these ties can be strengthened and the resilience can be strengthened on its own. That's why I think the question is very clear in terms of answer. There's a direct logical link between civic education, cultural heritage as a part of civic education. So this system works apparently, and we want to explore the situation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Great. Just one question also from my side, if you do not mind. You presented lots of nice projects, Liubov. I just wonder how much the IT technologies or digital methods have influenced in making sure that this cultural heritage preservation has been more effective, let's say, because we all are now in lockdown, and how you guys have managed to work via technologies to make benefit of your work.
Thank you for your question. Actually, it's still a real challenge for us because of our location. First of all, we're in a rural area, and definitely, if we're especially we are talking about some mountain settlements, or it doesn't mean that these people do not have access to the internet. It's about their habits. Actually, if they really got used to using these things to communicate, and particularly for such countries as Georgia, the most traditional way of decision making or communication, is actually offline meetings. Is like surprise, having some meal together, discussing that around the table. So unfortunately, I wouldn't say that we're really very that we succeeded in bringing our community back in the online dimension. So definitely we implemented a lot of online projects with youngsters, but these are mainly some simulation games, which because it's really hard to make people stay in front of the computer for a long time, and this kind of fatigue is really a modern problem and illness nowadays. So not so many people, even if the topic is interesting, and not so many people are really ready to spend time in front of the computer. So that's the issue. I would say, if we just put it and say it at another, see it at another angle, I would say that definitely digitalization is a very good instrument, a very good toolkit for cultural heritage promotion, especially if we are talking about virtual reality. But it's a bit different level, and definitely it can be used. But after that, it should be prototype offline. So like going to some, like if we're talking about educational institution, to some schools probably, and to show, because that will definitely make an even stronger impact at community members, you know, because everything new is very, very powerful.
Yeah, indeed it is. And especially for the younger generation. So I'm mother of 2 kids. I can bring 2 examples, if you do not mind. Like just the simple, let's say, ballet and opera houses which were closed, and then you need to watch, right, these traditional and nice national performances, and they were broadcasting it online. And then you sit at home with the kids and you watch that. That's another experience. And this digitalization brings you to another level of understanding what is the culture, the heritage. The same is about the tours, the online tours that the museums and other cultural places are organizing, 360 tours via social media. Or I think I had my daughter was watching recently the Hermitage Museum series in different languages. They tell about different cultures, they challenge the audience to write down some comments, nice facts about that. So it's just really different experience that I had in my childhood or in the same ages. So these technologies can make really great impact and changes, at the same time making sure that we preserve digitally also all the cultural heritage we have, and we pass it to the generation, because cultural heritage, per my opinion, it keeps you alive, keeps it to stick to your identity somehow, because it influences a lot the usual development of the individual person. And one more question from Christine we have is, does Efendi Villa have any entrepreneurship activities like social entrepreneurship?
Thank you. Thank you, Christine, for your question. I would say that we implemented a few programs on social entrepreneurship with partnership with our partners from Tbilisi. It was a couple of years ago. Currently, unfortunately, we don't run such programs, but we would really would like to consider opportunities to run them again, because definitely there is a particular interest and need, as we also have a community of artists, local artists with very peculiar craft skills, because even when we explored that, it's so unique that we found something like that only in some northern part of Norway or Sweden. I'm mistaken now. I'm talking about wood carving. And this wood is really particular because it comes from the bottom of the Spani Mares, which was recently included on the UNESCO list. And it's another part of our mission here. We deal not only with cultural heritage preservation, but natural heritage preservation as well. So I really could talk more about it, but probably I don't want to take your time. Thank you.
You can later on share any insights about that project that we can spread within our network. So anything that you think is useful for us to read, any information to share with the network members, it will bring us more educational, let's say, benefit. Thank you so much. I think we are already done. The time is up, and I would like to thank our special guest speakers and thank you for the really great, insightful topic that you covered today. And we hope you will become the members of EENCE, and we'll see you more in our network. Your activities are quite really great and large from the aspect of education, and not only cultural heritage is one of the topics that people don't speak so much, and it needs indeed attention. Once again, thank you everyone, participants and trainers. Yeah, we were happy to see you. Have a great day ahead. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.